Alrighty, this is the third video of the day. Why Iverson was sentenced to 15 years in prison. This by KB Goes Live 4 days ago. You feel me? I'm going ahead and like that bitch. Just gonna get into it. We ain't got time to waste.
NBA legend Allen Iverson helped shape the NBA into what it is today. He had one of the biggest cultural impacts on the league in the post-Jordan era. However, Iverson's fame did not come without struggles. Just like many other NBA stars, the beginning of Allen Iverson's life wasn't easy. He was born to a single teenage mother and grew up in a rough neighborhood. He would use sports like football and basketball to
Damn, what I
escape the
looking like?
negativity around him. Growing up in Hampton, Virginia, Allen Iverson also had to deal with racism on a frequent basis. He was especially used to people referring to him with racial slurs. Iverson was a top high school basketball star, named the AP High School Player of the Year in both football and basketball. He was so good that right after leading his football team to the Virginia State title as a junior quarterback, he promised to do the same at basketball, and he did. He was also a Virginia Player of the Year in both sports. He averaged 31.6 points per game
Damn.
in basketball and scored 21 touchdowns in football. But on February 14, 1993, Iverson found himself in a situation that could have potentially ruined his life. On this day, 17-year-old Allen Iverson, along with a group of his friends, all black students, decided to head to a bowling alley called the Circle Lanes. They planned to bowl, eat food, and just have a good time. When they arrived, a woman at the counter sent them to the end of the alley to a small lane that was pretty uncomfortable since it was pretty close to a wall. By the time they got their shoes and balls, it was 10:30 p.m. and the bowling alley was fairly busy. The kids started having a good time as they would bowl, stand on chairs, and talk loudly. Somebody from the alley told them to keep it down not once, but a few times. But having as much fun as they were, they continued to play and disregarded what they said. Allen and a couple of his friends decided to go to the snack bar on the other side of the alley, over by a group of Caucasian males. As Iverson approached the guys, they were finishing their last bowling game. A man by the name of Steve Forrest, who was 22 years old at the time, grilled Iverson. According to Iverson, one of Steve's friends called him the N-word and a little boy. That's when Iverson lost it. Now, Steve Forrest was fairly big at 6'2", weighing 200 pounds. On top of that, he had a few felony convictions, one of which included cocaine possession. But Iverson, at 6'1" and 175 pounds, was way smaller. "You ain't gonna do nothing to me," Iverson responded. Then, according to Iverson and his friends, Forrest swung a chair at him and the fight started. Both chairs and fists.
I was trying to say it, but I'm gonna say it now. Why is like I don't it? Why isn't racism a federal crime? Like blatant racism, a federal crime. Like you are in rights of whooping a nigga ass if they be racist. I'm serious because let a racist motherfucker come into my face. I'm beating the ass. Just saying. But I feel like it should be a federal crime. Like you shouldn't be sentenced to that. They should be sentenced to at least a year, two, maybe like a year, not too much, but be in that cell or in that prison to reflect on what to not do that shit again.
Went flying
But
across
it
the
doesn't.
bowling alley. The remainder of Iverson's friends heard the dispute happening and decided to jump in and help. In the end, two people were knocked unconscious. One of them
Damn.
was a 23-year-old college student who was struck by a chair and will receive 6 stitches near her left eye. The police showed up and broke up the fight, but they only arrested Iverson and the people that was with him. All
Of
4
course.
were young black men. Many residents of Hampton, Virginia found it strange that the police broke up a huge group of people fighting only to come up with 4 black males as the suspects for what had taken place. But many people also thought that they'd only get a slap on the wrist and that would be it. In July, the 4 men were convicted as adults for maiming by mob. This basically meant that Iverson and his friends had intention to kill Steve and his associates, even though it was Steve that initially began the fight. Despite the shocking turn of events, many people still thought that they would only receive probation or perhaps a few hundred hours of community service for it. Instead, on September the 8th, Judge Nelson Overton sentenced each of the 3 men to 15 years in prison. To top things off, the judge denied all bail requests, even though prisoners convicted of crazier crimes, such as murder and the R word, were allowed to have bail in the area.
Right.
Outraged by this clear display of discrimination, 150 protesters marched through Hampton yelling, "Free the Hampton Four," and "No justice, no peace." Only one protester was white in the entire thing. Many of the people that were there were wearing Free Iverson t-shirts. This group would eventually call themselves Swizz, an acronyms for Simmons, Wynn, Iverson, and Steven, which is the four guys that got locked up for this. It was a really scary time for Iverson. It was like everyone was out for him. Witnesses would claim that it was Iverson who initially started the fight, and that Steve was just acting in self-defense. Even the girl who was hit by the chair testified that Iverson was the one who threw the chair. Iverson would eventually reply to those allegations by saying, "People try to start things with me because of who I am, and I know that means I have to stay away. It's definitely racial." Despite his statements that he was innocent of any wrongdoing, a number of witnesses said that he was the one that started it. Iverson was known to be a cocky individual, and Forrest testified in court that Iverson got in his face and started the fight for no good reason. Many will believe Steve's statement and try to blame Iverson since he had a troubled past, kind of. Iverson grew up in a bad neighborhood with no father or money, and he had his fair share of problems. But the closest he had ever been involved with a crime before this fight was a traffic violation. The bigger question here was, why was there 3 teenagers locked in jail for 15 years for such a small offense? They were given long prison sentences because they got in a fight in a bowling alley, and they said somebody had to put those black kids in their place, make an example out of them. That somebody was Judge Overton. Overton was known to be tough on black defendants. He was a judge who gave away a 15-year prison sentence for kids that got into a fight as if they were murderers. 15 years for an incident where nobody was seriously injured and where none of the white men from the bowling alley were charged. Iverson and his friends each spent 4 months in prison. Even during his prison sentence, Iverson was still receiving support and love. He would receive tons of mail in which ladies were sending him their belongings, gifts, and even money. Many reporters were even requesting interviews with Iverson about his plan for sports despite his situation. In 1995, Allen Iverson was pardoned by Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder, with his conviction being overturned by the Virginia Court of Appeals after serving just 4 months at a correctional facility because there was not enough evidence to actually charge these guys, and the ruling was just wrong in the first place. Just 24 hours after, Iverson was back on the basketball court. He immediately joined his local summer league. His release was such a big deal that the majority of the city overpacked the gym with a long line of people standing outside because of the lack of space inside. In his first game out of prison, Allen Iverson scored 40 points and scored a combined 99 points in the 3 days that followed after that against some of the best college talent in the city. Despite this performance, some college basketball coaches were scared to recruit Iverson, considering he was just released from prison. Sure, he was an amazing point guard, but he was making as much news in court as he was on the court. However, it would eventually be their loss because we all know how well Iverson turned out to be. Meanwhile, Barbara Steele, the girl who got hit by the chair, filed a $200,000 lawsuit against Allen Iverson later on. But that poor attempt at taking advantage would fail. To this day, Allen Iverson credits NBC's Tom Brokaw for helping him. Tom was the reporter who covered the story on Iverson's injustice, which eventually helped to bring the public's attention and support towards the matter. Had he not done the story, Iverson would most likely have remained in prison and would have been added to the list of black males in the prison system, which means he never would have touched the NBA court. Now just imagine that. Iverson said, "I had to use the whole jail situation as something positive. Going to jail, if someone sees something weak in you, they'll exploit it. I never showed my weakness. I just kept going strong until I came out. This has given me time to think about what I need to do to succeed in the world." In the end, Allen Iverson would continue his basketball journey while playing 2 years at Georgetown, being drafted #1 overall by the Philadelphia 76ers, and creating one of the most motivational basketball stories in NBA history. Now, just hearing this story at a glance, you might be wondering why it is that these black kids were sentenced to such lengthy prison sentences, but after doing plenty of research, I started to see the amount of racism that was present in Hampton, Virginia during the early 90s. Iverson had a large number of supporters. They wanted nothing but for him to be treated fairly during his trial. Those who were not convinced of Iverson's innocence felt that the law should be even more strict on him than it was. So you see, this trial was much bigger than Allen Iverson. It really showed people how complex a situation could become simply because of your skin color. I mean, think about it. What if the charge against Iverson was never dropped? Georgetown University and the NBA, along with fans of Iverson, would have missed out on one of the best ball handlers in the game. Now, I know you guys might not be the biggest Allen Iverson fans, and yes, he's not always the best behaved person on the court, but after learning about the struggles that he faced to get to where he got, you should have a newfound respect for him now. Anyways, that's it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, tap the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. As always, it's been fun rocking with y'all, man. I'm out.
Man, regular time, man. I like that nigga. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's for that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold it. Cool it. Cool it. Cool it. Cool it. Cool it. Cool it. Like the video. But that was a nice video. But it is crazy though. I'm telling you, like, it should be a federal crime. Or it should basically have the right to whoop your ass if you are racist. Like I take either or. Me, I take either or. I don't care. Like long as I can do something to you, then yeah. Or something happens to you, then yeah. It just. But 15 years is crazy. Nobody really got hurt like that. You know. But you sentence us 15 years, nigga? Oh, nah. This ain't how this finna fucking work. But yeah, this was a good ass video, good ass reaction. Hope it is. I'm out this motherfucker.